wheel of time turns and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Welcome to Dragonmount. I'm Kathy Campbell.
I'm Rajiv Moté.
And I'm Maureen Carr.
And we're back with the first episode of season 2.
Delicious.
Oh,
so exciting.
So exciting.
Yes. Delicious is a good word for it, I think. Delicious.
Delicious is the perfect word for it. Yes. I love this. If you are listening to this episode of the podcast when it comes out, just know that we are recording this in August because we were lucky enough to get the first 4 episodes early. So we will be recording podcast episodes for each of those show episodes. And it will be done without any reference to anything that might happen on social media or the internet or anything like that. So we are coming into this with just our own impressions and thoughts and feelings.
Prior to the
Yes.
All right, so we are going to be talking about episode 1 of season 2. The title is called A Taste of Solitude. The director of this episode is Thomas Naper, and it was written by Amanda Kate Schumann.
All right. I mean, this is the first episode. We've been waiting for this for a year and a half now. What is your first impression of seeing season 2 and that first moment, that first episode?
Yeah, I'm psyched.
Yeah.
Like I had mixed feelings about the first season. You know, I was looking for things that were in the book, some of my favorite scenes, etc. And when I saw something changed, I had to kind of get over it. But this season, I don't know if it's me that's changed or it feels more like what I got from The Great Hunt. So I'm pretty excited. I'm jazzed about it.
It's more nostalgic. Like, we're used to missing the books, you know, of those of us that started reading the series ages ago. You know, and then when you read that first prologue, it was like, oh my God, yes, like a warm blanket and hot tea on a rainy day. And this had that same feeling, but not for the books, but for the characters on the show. So I missed seeing Rosamund Pike's Moiraine, and I missed seeing Daniel Henney's Lan, and it was just so comforting to see them.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. And I think
Yes.
maybe that's what made me that much more positive is, yeah, I'm reconnecting with these folks that we've spent, we spent a lot of time dissecting what they were doing over the course of the first season's podcasting. And it was just a joy to see them again.
I agree, especially because it felt so fresh. It felt higher quality.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing to think about, one of the first things over the last year and a half that I talked to people that watched it, was the costumes and the fact that it seemed like everyone only had one outfit. And in this episode, we see Moiraine in like 3 different, which is already more than she did the entire season 1. And I feel like the hair is so well done. The makeup, the self-identification of each of the characters as they're playing these roles, they feel comfortable with it. They feel like they know more of who they are, which is really interesting that they were able to, so season 2 was mostly filmed before season 1 came out. A lot of it was anyways.
Uh-huh.
And so there was all of that time where they didn't have any feedback of what was going on. So I can't even imagine how much better season 3 is even going to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
As they get even more comfortable with these characters that they love and we love and the world that is being built. And once again, I just am constantly so impressed with how they weave in exposition in this show in such a natural way that doesn't feel like they are a professor trying to teach everyone everything.
Right.
Like it's all makes sense in the story, between Ishmael describing who the Trollocs are and like what they are, and this whole idea of like good and evil and like forsaken. And then you have, Alana teaching weaving a little bit and like pulling in the threads, and you have a little bit of like poetry, and just all of these little pieces once again are brought into the world in a very casual, natural way.
Definitely.
Since it is a work of fantasy and you expect this, fantastical world with lots of different things that are unworldly, it still feels as if it could be existing right now.
So let's dive in to this first episode. Now, the way that we have done it in the past is the way that we're going to continue to do it. We're going to kind of talk through in chunks of story. So obviously we're going to start with a cold open, which kind of lives by itself. And then we're going to hop around to the other little groups of our friends that, as they say, we're stronger together than apart. But unfortunately, everyone's apart, so they can't be any stronger. So let's get started with this cold open, which, by the way, everyone else has probably already seen because Amazon released it to everyone, which was kind of exciting to get that going. How do you guys feel about the Dark Friends Social?
Yeah. So that was a nostalgic bit for me, and this is a different spin from the books, but both book 2 and season 2 open with this gathering of people sworn to the dark, and there are 13 chairs around a table, and leading the group is Ishmael, who we learn is not the Dark One, but is his strongest lieutenant, if I'm to use Maureen's pronunciation. But he's one of the Forsaken, or as they call themselves, the Chosen. And he's leading this, and it's a discussion that it gives us some clues as to when this is taking place. So Ishmael reveals that what happened was Rand at the end of the last season did not kill him, but freed him. He broke the first seal on the Dark One's prison, which freed Ishmael. Now he walks in the world, and he is not yet the dragon, but the one who will be the dragon. The framing sequence is interesting, though. There's a little girl who's playing outside, and these shapes start running at her, and she runs inside and crawls under the table where these people are gathering, and Ishmael kind of ducks in and says, "Excuse me, this is a very important meeting. What's the matter? Oh, are there monsters outside?" And then we get a very creepy scene where Ishmael takes the little girl out to meet the monsters. And you don't quite know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I am scared at how good Isham. I'm just going to call him Ishi because I can never say his full name. I'm so scared with how good Ishi is with kids.
Yeah, that's creepy.
He handled it so well. But also we had the bit where the little girl ran under the table. You get to meet some of these hooded humans and maybe a little bit of ideas of who they might be. One of the things is you see someone who's a black Aja because they have the Aes Sedai ring. And
it's a black gemmed ring, isn't it? I paused it to see if maybe it was a trick of the light, but I think she had a ring made with a black
or
gem.
Swapped out the gem, because as we've seen, they take the gems out and put the gold back into that magic boiling, flaming circle thing. We see the tinker. We see that the little girl is a tinker and tries to talk to mom, who is also a tinker. You see someone who is Shinarian. because they have this circle with the flying bird on it. And then there's a bunch of other people that we don't.
There's someone with very long fingernails.
Yes, very long fingernails. I wonder who they're from.
So we've seen this character in the previews.
Yes, we have. Those nails are for a Xianxin. So that's kind of impressive that they managed to make it to this appointment. There's also somebody with some very fancy cufflinks and a shirt. Yes. We've got white gloves. We also find out that Peyton Fane is hanging out on the table.
The only one who's willing to drop his cloak. He's got nothing to hide.
It's pretty great though. His really creepy smile. It's traumatizing. But I love this introduction to kind of like how evil she is, but also this conversation that they're having about like, how do you prove the things that you do are good or evil? Which is adding this extra layer to the quote unquote bad guys, which I really enjoy.
Yeah, one thing that Ishamael said when he was talking to the little girl, he's like, some people have called me the Dark One, some have called me Betrayer of Hope, some have called me Forsaken. And he's like, do you know why they call us this? And then he says to the little girl, if people call me what I really am, did he say no one would be afraid?
Yeah.
Yep. And then put on Fane drops his hood and we're all afraid again.
Yep. So scared.
But this is definitely interesting where they're talking about the possible motives of evil. And this comes up again later on during a Perrin scene. The idea is, well, why do these evildoers do what they do? They may have their own reasons. And, I'm wondering if that's going to be another theme of this season is, kind of the rationale of the dark, which is a deviation from the book because dark friends and people who serve the dark, they might have their reasons, but, they're generally not good ones. You can explain it, but you can't justify being evil in the books. There's a very solid line between light and dark. I think this might get more murky, which might get interesting.
Which I find it so much more interesting that way. Sure. And so that's the cold open. And something else I found really interesting after the cold open, there was no musical intro. We just had the little spiral of the snake for the logo, and then we moved on to the next scene. So no beautiful tapestry woven with the Aes Sedai, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, I wondered if that was just a cost-saving measure or something.
Or if they realize... Because I've noticed that a lot with newer television shows is they don't have really like long intro music, with the exception of like Game of Thrones. They just get right into it. They're like, you know what you're watching. You're gonna watch all of the episodes. Let's go for it. Let's just go.
Everybody skips them anyway.
And especially we're getting the first 3 or 4 episodes dropped on
first
opening
3
day.
episodes.
So binge chance is high.
Yes, exactly.
That makes sense.
All right. So we jump into the Moiraine section, but we're not going to talk about that first because that kind of is the epic finale of this episode. So instead, let's head over to Tar Valon, shall we?
Okay, the White Tower. I just wanted to draw a parallel, though, even though we're going to go back to the Moiraine section. Moiraine starts her section carrying water buckets, and Egwene is doing the same, just in the White Tower. And it's a sign of women who are in a humbled position. Moiraine has lost her power, obviously. Egwene is low on the totem pole here. She's a novice. She's wearing the traditional white outfit and gray apron, and while she's doing her chores of a novice. And people are dumping their trash into buckets as
oh my gosh,
as
the first time I saw Leanne just walking by and tossing her cup into Egwene's bag, I was just like, yes, queen. I really like how, once again, this conversation of like exposition, what a great way to really introduce you to the White Tower in a different way. In season 1, you saw the high level parts. You saw what Moiraine, where she went, what she did, what she talked to. And now we're seeing the kitchens. But in between there, you're seeing, cleaning up the tables. You're seeing the stole being on the little stand. You see the accepted watching the warders fighting and practicing and stuff. I loved, it was only a couple minutes, but it shows so much for the story.
Yeah, you go on a tour and, you notice also that the budgets are higher. The sets are elaborate and detailed. The visual effects from outside of the tower are breathtaking.
So gorgeous.
And this is a place where people are working. People are doing their things. And there's a lot going on. And you get a little tour.
Yes. It's so great. And then a lot is going on in the kitchen. And then even more happens.
But before that, we still have Alana and Sexy Time, which I want to take note of.
Oh,
which was
yes.
hilarious.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
So hilarious.
Yeah, so the first episode of this season really, cancels all of the there was innuendo and things in the first episode that are they a threesome?
Yes, they are. And later on,
and they have
so much fun. And later on you learn that Maxim joined because he was in love with a warder. I loved that moment, and especially where Alana is like, oh wait, Egwene. But Egwene's already running out because she's so traumatized.
It's a little callback to, I think in the books, the Two Rivers kids were a little extra young and extra prude.
Extra innocent.
And that was in contrast to the show where they were a little more experienced and... worldly in their ways, but now we get
not as worldly as they thought.
yeah. She can still be shocked.
And later on, Alana comes in. Well, first off, Egwene and Nynaeve are kind of like talking about being novices and how hard it is. They signed the book of novices. And cleaning builds character. And Nynaeve says, I have enough character. Obviously, Nynaeve is pushing against the bonds just a little bit. Alana comes in and she's ready to kind of settle everybody down to give them a lesson. Because one of the things the novices do, not just cleaning, not just building character, but they need to learn how to weave and how to do things with the power. It's not just embracing the source anymore. They need to figure out how to do things with it. And Alana gives them a task of how to weave together earth, which is now green, and water, which is blue, into a weave, and pours the water down through the weave to make it crystal clear. Something I really...
And it's Egwene's bucket of dirty water that people have been dumping their trash
all the
into.
Disgusting, absolutely disgusting things. Yes.
Now do some water filtration. Using the one power. That's your exercise.
And you have to drink the glass of water before you can leave. And something that I really found interesting was how everyone moved their hands a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. So Alana did it one way. Some of the other novices did it a different way. And Egwene tried to do it without moving her hands at all. Alana is basically like, why you make this harder? And Egwene's like, I want this to be. Difficult.
Yeah,
I want this challenge. and shows her stubbornness that comes from the two rivers, but definitely not as stubborn as Nynaeve is.
Quite. Another interesting thing is that Alana comes down to the kitchens to teach them, meaning we're not going to interrupt your chores. You're still going to be doing useful things. I'm going to take 5 minutes to have this lesson and then go back to your chores.
Very integrated.
It makes sense, though, because there's so much that always has to get done.
One fun thing that was confirmed in this scene, I know we were, when we were doing our speculation, I was wondering whether or not this would be the case, but we've confirmed that Nynaeve is blocked from using the one power under normal circumstances. I mean, we saw her untrained basically explode into power to heal Lan in the first season, and she was part of a link that stopped Trollocs at the end of the first season. But now that she's in a controlled environment, she can't touch the source without being provoked. And that irks her, and that she's so stubborn and prideful about that she goes ahead and drinks that filthy water just to say, well, I don't need to do this exercise.
Yeah, you didn't say we had to clean it. And then the stubbornness.
There's a cut scene somewhere where she's
right
throwing up off the side of
and
the
she
tower.
stalks off, and Alana is just kind of like, oh, well, you're so much more stubborn than I expected. But don't worry, Alana's going to tell Sheriam what's going on, and make sure that they're going to get the training that they need, the way that they need it. Right. Even if it means having Leandrin as a teacher.
Well, and that was an interesting thing, because Leandrin is forbidden from teaching novices because a novice died under her lessons. This is not a this is not the greatest of teachers.
No. And they didn't. The fact that Alana was so scared to have Leandrin even have the option. And Sheriam is kind of like, oh my goodness, you're going to let her loose with Nynaeve. What the heck?
I just wanted to call out one thing. I had to pause it to make sure. But sure enough, that is Min sitting in the background of this discussion of amongst Aes Sedai.
What?
And she's just sitting on a bench reading. And then you see her get up and leave as they depart. So that's pretty interesting. Now we know where she ended up, but she is she's keeping some pretty select company, even if she's not actually saying anything.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Yeah.
I did not even notice that. I'm so glad you said something. Now I can't wait to watch it again.
Right. Yeah, this was about the third viewing that I caught that.
I don't necessarily know how long the difference between this scene and the next scene is with Nynaeve, because Nynaeve then goes and fights, is practicing fighting with Alana's orders, which I found...
And she's not doing badly.
She's holding her own. I mean, it's been several months, so it makes sense that she could, learn things at least. And this is where the warders give that inspiring little conversation. Basically, why are you here? What is keeping, why did you show up at all? That will keep you going. Talks a little bit about the warder training, the fact that they have to fight 10 men by themselves in order to quote unquote graduate. And it's basically just why are you even here if you're going to complain and not do what you need to do?
Well, it's a really legitimate question, right? Because Nynaeve, we know that Egwene wants to learn. She was eager to learn under Moiraine. Nynaeve doesn't revere the tower the way.
Yeah.
Egwene does revere the tower, and she was kind of fawning over the Amerlin and curtsying and respecting her last season. Nynaeve doesn't want any of that, and she doesn't like the hierarchy. So the question is legitimate. Are you going to become an apprentice again, basically? You were the village wisdom. You were the big cheese in your own little pond, to mix the metaphors.
I love cheese and ponds. Fantastic.
But now she is at the level of an apprentice, and Egwene knows how to be an apprentice. She was Nynaeve's apprentice. Nynaeve is not so good at that.
No. And doesn't want to be back to that, because she used to be, the wisdom. She used to be in charge. She did her training already in her mind, and now she's has to do dishes and cleaning and all of this terrible stuff that she's wondering if it's worth it. She's there because of Egwene, but maybe she doesn't want to be there anymore.
Well, drawing like a real life parallel into this is going to sound stupid, but as a teacher, there are times when you still need to learn, and I enjoy that part. I like Egwene. I want to go and learn some things, and I'll go back to being a student, and it helps you connect to other students and remember what it's like. So it's kind of interesting that Nynaeve can't see that.
Yeah. Oh,
absolutely. It speaks to a little bit of brittleness on Nynaeve's part.
Yes.
And, definitely in the books, there is a contrast that's drawn in several characters between being hard and being strong. Hard shatters, strong bends when it needs to, but goes on.
Yeah. And we definitely know which one Nynaeve is.
For now, at least.
For now.
For now.
For sure. Next up, so Nynaeve then goes to visit Egwene, which is the reason that she's here. And Egwene isn't there because Egwene is visiting Alana. One of the best scenes I've ever seen written was so fantastic. So Alana is, Snackosaurus Rex. She's got her pomegranate. She's hanging out. She's lounging,
again, so
as
sexy.
they say.
Like, so sexy in the scene.
Yes.
So sexy. I love that Egwene asked if she needed time to dress. Like, she's now going to be questioning going into Alana's room every day in the future now. And very seriously wants to know, like, how to juggle two things at once. And Alana thinks that it has to do with what Egwene saw in the bedroom with two lovers as opposed to two weaves. And it's so fantastically written and acted, and the performance, to see the embarrassment and just feel the embarrassment on Egwene's face when she realizes what Alana's talking about. And the face on Alana when she realizes what Egwene was actually asking about, and is just like, oh, child. Oh, honey.
Well, and I was waiting for that moment when, the description of how to juggle two lovers at once becomes a metaphor for how to deal with the power. But no. Oh, you're probably just trying to split it too much and use a flow for every particle of dirt. Just use two.
I love that.
So no, they have nothing to do with each other. That's just what Alana wanted to talk about.
And this line is just perfect. Remember, things are messy before they are perfect. Nothing worthwhile is neat and tidy. And I think that works for both conversations that were being had in that room.
Yes, that is the real lesson. That was a good one. That was a good line.
So good. Well, and then it looks like Nynaeve, after not finding Egwene, went back downstairs to the kitchens to try and figure out the weave. But Leandrin's going to come in and make her really angry.
So Leandrin knows the score here. Leandra knows what Nynaeve needs in this case. Better, apparently, than any of the other Aes Sedai. So I thought that was interesting. Like, we automatically assume everything Leandrin is doing is nefarious, but she seems to tap into the genuine way to get Nynaeve to at least assume her power, or the power she should have. So this relationship is becoming complicated already.
Yeah, she's leaning into the attitude that she knows, especially because Leandrin comes in and is talking to Nynaeve about how, like, you don't need a sword if you're an Aes Sedai. Like, this is why you don't need a warder, because they're a distraction and a weakness, and brings up Lan to make her even more angry. And impressively comes and basically destroys Leandrin with the same weave that she pushed against her to protect herself. But of course, she can only do that when she's angry. And we then learn about, blocking, shielding, to where you can't access the power at all, which is enough to make anyone really sad, but especially someone who just barely was able to channel for that moment, and then got cut off and realized that it doesn't matter how strong you are. If you are untrained, you can't.
Yep. Nynaeve, you still have things to learn. You can't rely on your raw power. You can't rely on just being angry all the time and then cutting loose. There are people who are going to have the knowledge to stop you. And Leandrin even says this: I don't want any man or woman, or even myself, to be able to stop you. Which is fascinating.
So powerful, really, because she knows what Nynaeve can be and what she wants from her.
And seems to want her to become that. You know, what I find so interesting about the adaptation of Leandrin, that discussion about the sword and the exchange, the little fight with the power, the idea that, her training of novices could actually harm novices, that was yet another character in the book. So there are three characters that are kind of conflating in the show. And I think it makes her such an interesting and complex figure in this storyline.
Definitely.
Everything I want to say about Leandrin, we're going to have to save for the book discussion, because I've got so much to say.
So much to say. Well, we will definitely save it for the book discussion.
Before we leave the White Tower, I just wanted there were a couple of little details that I got off of the end credits that I wanted to mention. One of them is that apparently Joya Bayir, a character from the book, a named character, is in here. So I'm wondering if she's going to be a presence later on. And then there's someone who's credited just as Novice 1. And she's the blonde novice at the beginning of the lesson with the water. And it's interesting. She's unnamed in the credits. The actress's name is kind of interesting. She's a Swedish woman, but her name is Sal Saleh, which in French means dirty room.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't know, but she's got like an Instagram presence, and she's got an IMDb presence, and through that you can see that her character name in here is Elsa Treehill, which is kind of a mashed together character of two different novices, Elsie Grinwell and Nicola Treehill. So I'm wondering if she's going to show up again, later down the line, fulfilling at least one of those roles.
Interesting. There's another little bit that happens in the tower, but we're going to leave that kind of to the end, I think, because we'll talk about Matt in that That's kind of all connected. Towards the end there. Let's head back up to the top of the show. Well, middle, top, I don't know. Let's talk about Perrin. Perrin's on a journey. Perrin is on a journey to find himself and the horn.
Yes. And inexplicably, Loyal and Uno are with him, and they're just fine.
If you remember,
time has
it's been
passed.
it's been several months. But they don't even mention anything about the battle, anything about, healing or anything. But yeah, everyone's fine.
You were stabbed by an evil dagger, weren't you? I got
Nope.
better. Yeah.
I got better. I woke up. Yeah. Perrin is writing a beautiful letter home or to the tower. How does it get there? No one knows. No one knows.
They have a great postal service there.
Clearly. But somehow it's going to get there by the end of the episode. But they are on the way for another hunt. Apparently there's been a signal fire and they're going to contact the sniffer. But on the way, Loyal and Perrin are going to give Uno so much shit. This was a great...
It's fun, and you can tell the actor there is just having such a great time playing
a good
Uno.
time. I love... Guy Roberts is just a blast. He seems so much fun. And they're... Loyal getting in on the giving shit just made it even better.
Right.
Especially in his voice. You can totally tell. Oh, yes, absolutely. Beautiful.
So well done. And then we meet a new character. Elias is the sniffer, and he seems...
Which is a major fake out for the book readers. We think we're prepared for another minor character, but it is a golden-eyed man named Elias. Elias. Sorry,
yes.
That's how it's
And those yellow eyes look very similar to Perrin's eyes when he had that kind of fight. I wonder why. Especially when they find the fire that's not actually a signal fire from the sniffer, but instead a bunch of dead tinkers who got attacked by bad guys. And Perrin sees kind of the ghosts of them moving, but a child made it out, and that seemed to be the little girl from the cold open.
I wanted to connect the two, but I wasn't sure.
It looked like the dresses seemed very, very similar. And it would make sense why she was able to get out and her mom was able to get out if they were also dark friends. But then again, you see there's a dark friend, Shinarian, who's dead, who could have been the one in the cold open, but maybe not.
Maybe.
Or there's another one. I don't know. But also, how did they all, regardless of whether the cold open, happens in the future of in the middle here or in the past at the very beginning, how did they all get there in time? Like, the Xiantian had to travel a lot, and they all, did some of them, arrive early and hung out at an inn for a couple days until everyone else shows up? How does this work? I want to know.
Well, it's a fair question, and I wondered where the Dark Friend Social took place. Where was that? We kind of got the answer of when was it, but where is a fair question, because our fingernail lady is a pretty high-ranking person, so you'd assume would be among the last off the boat.
Especially because who knows if this happens early in... we know that Ishi and the Xiantian happen in the future, because we saw that in the trailer. They're hanging out together. So how did they just go from the meeting? All right, first stop. Let's hang out and do whatever it is they're gonna do in the future. I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, Moraine goes on and on about how powerful the Forsaken are and how they're just so beyond anyone's comprehension. So I think Ishamael could easily get people anywhere he wanted to with the power. And I think we can just, assume he's doing something to gather high nobles and low tinkers to this weird central place.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and but they're going, even though there's some dark friends that were killed too, they're going to give them all burial, including the dog that died trying to save the little girl. So sweet.
Yeah. And that is where Ingtar makes his speech. It's kind of funny. I never pictured Perrin as one for speech making, but Perrin makes a speech about how there's a darkness in him, and he thinks about Pedan Fain and how they were all so nice to him in the Two Rivers, and he just led the Trollocs in, and even his wife was kind to him, and she was killed in that battle, and Perrin feels like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I see him. I'm probably going to kill him. I think they're all going to try to kill him, right?
But don't forget, Perrin went through this whole journey of, the way of the leaf and trying to find peacefulness. And so he's battling between these two halves of him. Inside him, there are two wolves.
Exactly. And I think what's interesting is he's saying this all to a warrior, a hardened warrior,
in a warrior culture too. The community that says peace favor your sword because they do not know peace.
So they are more disciplined about it. It's not violence is not a matter of animal or man, civilized or wild. It is a tool to be used. And Ingtar kind of gives a counter speech about, even Pedan Fain probably had reasons for what he did. You may not like them, but they are reasons.
Yeah. You may find it worth asking the question.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming they're going to keep journeying on. But we don't know, because that's the end of their bit in this episode. But let's hop over to the main, characters in this show and this episode. We see Moiraine, just like Egwene will be doing, filling water. She's got this beautiful kimono vibe going on. It's clearly super hot. And I don't want to know. Well, I mean, I do want to know, but I don't want to think about how many trips she had to make to the well to fill up that huge bathtub. So she's sitting there in this very emotional, washing her clothes at the same time that she's taking a bath because she can't use the one power to clean her clothing. And that's part of it's got to be really emotional, as you can tell by her breaking down.
Yeah, she curls up in the tub. There's this recognition that she can't even do the smallest things that she used to with her power. She has fallen.
Yeah.
And then we cut immediately to Lan, who is struggling in a different way. He's going through the sword forms that, he's obviously done all his life. But you can see on his face, he's just wrestling with his situation.
Yeah, and
and we learn that it's because Moiraine is shutting him
and
out.
I think too, it's not necessarily just the emotional weight of it, but the fact that he no longer has the bonus of being a warder. So he doesn't have that extra strength, extra speed, that sort of thing. And so it's important for him to do this practicing because he needs to.
But definitely the emotional thing is is what's discussed. He talks about it with Thomas, the other warder. Moiraine is getting visitors, like more than 20 visitors, and she's not sharing
with
anything
anyone
with Len about it. Yeah. So he feels shut out in a way that she was incapable of shutting him out before, but now she is. And he doesn't know why.
And it's difficult. And this most recent traveler is Bail Domon,
I was so
I know.
happy. Fortune.
I love that the Illians almost sound Scottish, which is great. It's the different accents are just, I'm so excited to continue to hear how they sound as time goes on and we meet some more characters, which is really exciting.
Yeah. And he sounded exactly like how I read from the book, his accent sounding. So, like right before he even entered the room and I heard his voice, oh my God, are they doing Bail Domon? So
yes, absolutely. And Master Domon has brought some presents for Moiraine. A lump of metal that looked like it had like some gears burnt into it from before the breaking, which, as we know from the cold open in season 1, all of these like futuristic to us like spaceship type thing. So, it might be something from a car or something, which I thought was a really interesting little bit of visuals to connect some like the past with the future type of a vibe before we learn a little bit about Hearthstone.
And he kind of talks about where it came from. It was on a disc outside of Cairn, and it is something that is unbreakable, but it was obviously a broken piece. And we've seen this happen before in the finale of season 1 when a Shamael was freed unwittingly by Rand. And so now this is clearly a shard of another seal that has been broken. And who could it be that crawled out of that seal?
Don't know. Let's stay tuned and find out.
Stay tuned.
But we also learn that even though Moiraine can't channel, she's still an Aes Sedai by pulling this beautiful bargaining moment with Master Domon. It's like, okay, 50 marks for the Hearthstone, 5 marks for a poem that he made a copy of, and Maureen's like, no, I'm not giving you 5 marks. I'll give you 1. It's like, okay, but 50 for the Hearthstone. Yeah, not budging. Okay, Maureen's just like, all right, here you go, 1 mark for the poem. That's all I want. And the pride and like haughtiness on her face when she's just like, look, I said I made the game. You just been played, boy. But it changes a little bit, like quickly. Her face changes when she learns that like men were following him.
Men in black cloaks, and you can't see their faces.
They might be fades, maybe.
Yeah. So she tells him to just
get
run
out of here.
Yeah.
Next, Lan enters the room, and Moiraine is ignoring him and being a little brat. And Lan is throwing a fit, basically. You're shutting me out. And she's just like, well, I'm going to have my dinner up here tonight. And Lan's like, well, fine, make it yourself. And just like stomps out.
Yeah, and one of my predictions for this was that Lan and Moiraine were going to like grow stronger and bond better, and she was going to be vulnerable and sensitive and open up. And it's the exact opposite.
Yep. or not, or the
Yep.
opposite.
Yep.
Yeah. Especially when we are going to have this moment where Lan sets up the plate for Moiraine as Adelaide is eating, and Tomas asks Lan if he wants them to wait, and he says yes, and she's just like,
Pauses her fork.
like this poor silly man making me not eat right now. I'm gonna like have my hissy fit.
Yeah.
It was so cute.
Well, and so like both the Aes Sedai and this older warder kind of lecture Lan that, you know, when Moiraine, they talk about Moiraine almost as though she's been like permanently severed from the one power. And it's like a loss like no other, a violation like no other. You know, she's basically needs to figure out who she is anymore now. All of that kind of stuff. So they're telling him, you know, you gotta be patient. You gotta kind of rein it in and be understanding. You gotta shut up and listen to her.
Because thankfully she's still alive. She's still fighting to be alive, because a lot of times it's not. Right. That's not such a thing.
And so Len takes that to heart, and he takes her plate, and, you know, he's gonna serve her dinner just as she kind of you know, brattily said, I'm just going to eat alone up here. And so he takes it up to her, and of course she's gone because no one gave her any kind of lecture. But she rides off and gets into some trouble.
Just a little bit of trouble. A fade comes out of nowhere. She's now no longer on the horse. She barely has a knife. Trying to, you know, get away and protect herself. She manages to, I'm impressed. She manages to hit one fade with that little knife, which is awesome. But another one shows up and stabs her.
I was watching this kind of carefully, and they were actually doing it where the fades are materializing out of the shadows, which is kind of cool. And I wasn't sure. I was trying to see if this was the case, but I think Moiraine was kind of like using her boot to make noise to signal to the fade where she was, and it materialized where she was, hoping to catch her. And that's when she stabbed it. So, like, there's some cool stuff.
Yeah, using her brain since she doesn't have the power. Thankfully, though, Lan comes to save her from the death shot.
Oh, thankfully.
Except for then doesn't actually get to fade.
Yeah, then he dies too.
Because having two fades come normally, you know, he might be able to handle it. But without the power of being a warder, as well as, you know, the exhaustion and frustration and tiredness, and they're just working so well together, it just isn't happening. And he's laying practically dying, and Moiraine rests her hands and closes her eyes like she's trying to channel, and you see light.
Yeah, a few
little
sparks. She can still touch.
Except
the
I don't know. I don't know if that was actually
trickle.
her. I think it was the sisters. One of the sisters pulling it from her. I don't think that was actually Maureen's channeling. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. I was watching it pretty closely, and it seemed like she'd produced something. But if you're saying like she was linked,
no, I think that's just where Varen kind of pulled the energy, like, to start the channeling, because it then goes on, and it's Varen coming in and attacking. And I know, sorry. And Tomas hits that flaming fiery sword.
Oh my god!
So cool.
That was such a fake out from the previews. Like, I was sure that was Rand being like book 3, Rand, you know, killing fades.
Nope, it was the power of a warder. And Lan is just like, what aren't you telling me? And then they both pass out.
Yeah, but one really cute thing, though, is, they're fighting. They're on, they're angry with each other, but she still, like, flops her hand down on top of his hand.
Yeah. Still connects to have that moment of, like, are you okay?
Right, because, I mean, if you're that close to death, even, like, reaching out to him.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to die, you still want to die with your friend.
Yeah. The person that you've traveled with forever. An emotional end to that episode, especially right before Lan and Maureen have their big fight. We celebrate Beltane in Tarvalon. Because somehow Perrin magically got the letter there in time, perfectly in time. Egwene's making the lantern. Nynaeve brings the letter and forgot that it was Beltane again. And is just like talking about how, they feel so separated, but hopefully next Beltane they'll all be together. Let's, think these prayers and thoughts to Rand and Layla, they're dead. Maybe we can find Mat too. And that's an important line, because
that is an important line.
The next scene, Leandrin is reading the letter, which apparently, so I'm guessing that she took it before she gave it to Nynaeve. Caught it through the filters in the mail.
Somehow.
And read it, and then it got to Nynaeve, so we've got a little bit of time switching here, because Leandrin is reading the letter and ignores the parts about Mat. And Mat is...
Yeah, and then makes a point to say, they don't even mention
nobody cares.
Which is a lie.
Yeah, definitely.
And
there's a lie there.
Sedai cannot
Interesting. But Mat is emotional. He hasn't touched the dagger in 6 months.
Right.
And Perrin takes his Beltane lights down to the river, puts the wedding ring on it for a moment, but before he ships it off, takes it back, which got me. It was so emotional. Yeah. Egwene and Nynaeve are crying, and Egwene misses Rand, and Nynaeve is like, no matter how much I complain about this place, I'm not going anywhere, which is so powerful, especially with the fight that she was having with herself earlier of whether she wants to be here or not. Clearly she does. And then you see Mat moving a piece of furniture to pull out a knife and start digging at a brick in his prison. And Nynaeve puts the lantern out the window because they can't make it down to the water. And then you see another lantern. It's Rand. Rand comes out of the shadows to celebrate Beltane
in a city somewhere.
Don't know where he is, but maybe we'll find out.
Oh, his hair. We don't know where his hair is either.
Hair disappeared too.
He's shaved his head. Because apparently redheads are problematic in this one.
Well, or at least they're identifiable. And so he's somewhere, but he's also celebrating Beltane. And that's the end of the episode.
Indeed.
Anything else to say before we slip over to the book spoilers?
I want to slip over
I know.
the books.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So this is the spoiler. Once again, if you don't care about book spoilers, feel free to listen. If you are either planning on reading or in the process of reading, we will have book spoilers probably for the whole, or definitely for the whole series. Will be involved in this conversation. So feel free to slip to the end. Don't worry, it will have chapter markers. So we will not spoil anything that you need to. Keep secret. But and now it's time to talk. Okay, are we jumping into Leandrin? Are we going to do Leandrin first? Because clearly Moiraine has
let's do her first.
Has thoughts.
Let's talk Leandrin. Yeah, Maureen, take it
Yeah.
away.
All right. So, looking at this from a TV viewer's perspective, Leandrin actually is endearing, and you see where
Yes.
she's coming from, and you see that she's trying to
Mm-hmm.
be a friend and a confidant and a cheerleader and holding Nynaeve up, and and just knowing that's not what she's doing just makes it so much more nefarious.
Yes.
I can really see this is going to be a big reveal for non-book readers. Yeah, the Reds are kind of mean and they're kind of grumpy and they have this kind of unapproachable attitude. But Leandrin's being so nice. We're warming up to her, and it's like, nope, never mind.
Yeah, I know. Which is why, that interview that we did with Kate Fleetwood was just like, how dare you? How dare you
Uh-huh.
make this character so incredible and so layered?
I know, right?
Because she is going to be, we know, as book readers, we know that she's Black Aja. It was subtly confirmed in that interview that she is still Black Aja, because there were thoughts and commentary online about whether or not she is Black Aja. But also we can know for sure that she's Black Aja because she lied to Matt in his face.
Yes.
Yep.
But I don't think that she was the Black Aja in the circle, because that dress was very brown. And I don't think Leandrin would wear a brown dress. Who might wear a brown dress that is Black Aja?
Yeah.
Varen, which let's talk about this book switch. So by having
Wow,
Varen
that was a big one.
be one of the sisters instead of Vandine was huge. I wondered if they were going to completely get rid of the sisters at all. I'm so glad they didn't. And honestly, this makes sense to link in Varen with more of the story, having combining Aes Sedai, totally fine.
It's a good efficiency. It introduces her early on. It sets her personality, and she's watching Moiraine.
Yes.
And from the book we know that she has glommed on to what Moiraine and C1 were doing.
Yes.
With the Dragon Reborn, and that was actually a revelation in book 2.
Yeah.
And she's there, she knows, and she is she's willing to kill a few fades.
Oh no.
Too.
It's such a hard thing to do.
So what exactly is she doing and whose side is she on has always been fun about Varen.
Yes, and it made
and we're starting that on right
yeah,
away.
which I love because it will make the reveal in the future even better. And I hope against hope that they keep that reveal for when it is in the story, in the plot line. Because that, oh my gosh, that moment of realization on Egwene's face just is, beautiful. It's so good. Yeah. So good. Yeah. I have chills just thinking about it.
Jumping back to Leandrin real quick, she was, the conversation she had with Nynaeve mirrored the one Nynaeve had with the Amerlin seat in the books. And then the way that Leandrin is ambitious and kind of trains novices too hard is very much like Eleda, which, I know that we've talked about this amongst ourselves and said that, well, Eleda could still be introduced.
Yeah.
She could be introduced when we get to Camelin. But, I feel like Leandrin's being set up to sort of fulfill a bunch of these roles, which makes her complex.
Yeah.
But the other thing was Min's presence at that gathering makes me wonder about who Min is working for, because in the book, Min was keeping tabs on all the other Aes Sedai by, with her viewings of, her visions of people's auras. She was doing this for the Amerlin. The Amerlin's not here. We don't know where the Amerlin
she
is
disappeared
right now.
somewhere.
So who's Min working for?
And I mean, to be fair, it is entirely possible to work for somebody who's not actively there.
That is true.
So she could still be working for the Emirlin. We don't know. Just making sure.
But it's all kind of interesting. Go on. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I like the way that we are doing these lessons. It's way more interesting for the novices than being in a classroom. I was a little bit concerned about like how they were going to do the teaching because it's boring seeing people in class. And so the fact that they're doing it this way, I find really interesting. And the accepted dresses that we saw with the kind of the sewing along the wrists and the floor, I thought were really interesting too. And seeing kind of how the tower is built and connected, I found really interesting.
I can't wait to make those sleeves. I want them so bad.
And then one more dark friend. Do we think Ingtar was the Shinerian at the Dark Friend Social or not? Because Ingtar's sigil is the owl, not that other bird that everyone else had.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So is it a different one?
Yeah.
Is it a different
It's a good
Shinerian?
question. And whether Ingtar's going to be a dark friend at all, I think he is. But it puts a different spin on his speech to Perrin about all the dark friends having their own reasons for doing it.
Exactly.
We know from the book that Ingtar turned dark friends because he didn't think they could win.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wanted to like do some kind of truce or do some kind of save something of the Borderlands by making an alliance with the dark. He basically had surrendered to despair.
Yeah.
So he's a fine one to talk about that kind of thing, that all dark friends have their motives for being.
Yep. And I think we're building these characters to have not just black and white, good and evil personalities, but there's some good in everybody. And I think, one of the sayings in the books is that nobody is so far to the dark that they cannot be returned to the light. And this idea of having the humanity and the goodness in these dark friends too, I think is really powerful.
But one extra dark friend, which we didn't mention when we talked about the Aes Sedai, Sheriam, again, turns out to be a dark friend.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
How did I forget that she was a dark? There's so many Black Asha in the show already. Oh my god.
I know, right? So many.
I thought I made a note to remember to talk about that because we see Sheriam and Leandrin supposedly have a conversation after the bigger circle. I wonder if they know each other is a dark friend, and if so, if they are using this to get Nynaeve powerful to be on the side of the dark.
Yeah. Leandrin even says that Nynaeve is the greatest weapon we have against the dark. Yeah, I think if Black Aja were to be discussing like who to recruit,
absolutely, Nynaeve.
This would be a big criterion,
especially having somebody that's so emotional and being able to twist that to become what they need,
or even just taking her out. She's such a strong channeler. Just remove her entirely, and then the light can't have her either.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's definitely another option.
Well, it's the Dark One has already talked about, or Shamael, speaking on the Dark One's behalf, has already talked about using Rand, and he has used Rand to break the first seal. There may be a female channeler equivalent of what they're trying to do. I was think about Star Wars. The Emperor didn't want to kill Luke. He wanted to turn Luke.
Yeah.
And this is an arms race, and you want to get your most powerful weapons on your side.
Yeah, and they might as well, if they're humans, you might as well get them while they're vulnerable and in a strange world, in a strange land with, communities that they don't really understand, and they don't know how to use the powers yet. And you're going to try and build this trust so that they will only believe in you. I think Leandrin is doing a really good job.
So one other thing, talking about the tower still, when Nynaeve is practicing with the warders, one of the other warders, was it Ivan, said, "Oh, you're going to be bonded to an Aes Sedai before you know it." And that's good kind of foreshadowing for Elaine and Brigitte, whatever her name is. The silver-bowed girl from the Horn.
I don't know.
I heard Robert Jordan.
They call her
Brigitte
in the audiobook.
I don't know.
Brigitte.
But yeah, absolutely. I thought that was a funny line.
I liked
too.
that. But yeah.
Like, you're really just trying to be a warder, aren't you? Not really an Aes Sedai. So,
well, I'm closer to being a warder than being an Aes Sedai, because of course she can't channel. Yep. And we learned that she has not channeled at all since she's been at the tower.
Well, basically, the 2 times she's done it on screen to any amount have both been very traumatic experiences. So I can understand like a hesitation or that buildup of frustration and nervousness and just terrified of it.
Yeah. And not being able to get it when she can.
Yeah, she says that nobody should have that kind of power. She is afraid.
Yeah. And not being able to access it when you need to, it means that you cannot work with it to try and become more comfortable. And that's really scary. Yeah. All right.
Hey, I wanted to ask you guys something about the poem that was written in blood on a seal. So we know from the books that there's an entire dark prophecy, and there are all these stanzas that may never show up in the show. Like, I don't know if we're gonna talk about Luke and Isam or Isam merging into Slayer, or
I don't know if that's gonna be
twice and twice he shall be marked. I don't know if we're gonna get the heron marks on Rand's hands. But I was looking back at that, and one of the stanzas of Dark Prophecy, which relates to a seal being broken in the show, is about Lanfear. And Moiraine is reading this now. So she has an inkling that perhaps Lanfear is after Rand. And I wonder if some of her desire to leave Lan is kind of mirroring how she was preparing to go confront Lanfear.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, definitely possible. Definitely possible.
We don't know what the poem is
yet,
but that seemed to be the most relevant part.
All right. Is that it?
I think so.
Fantastic. You can find links to follow us online in the show notes down below or on Dragonmount.com. On our website, we have so much great content about the Wheel of Time. Blog posts, chapter and episode summaries, news, as well as links to our YouTube channel and all of our other social media. You can find so many great videos on the YouTube channel. You will definitely find things to entertain you. Also, make sure to check out our Patreon. Not only do you get to support this amazing community of creators here at Dragonmount, but we have other goodies for you too. We are going to be revamping it over the next year, but right now you can see the full interviews I did with Daniel Henney, Madeline Madden, Marcus Rutherford, Kira Coveney, and Donald Finn. I hope you enjoy. I've been Kathy Campbell.
I'm Rajiv Moté.
And Maureen Carr.
This is not the ending, but it is an ending. Thanks so much for listening, and we hope you have an absolutely incredible day.